Yeah.
But he always told such good stories about flying on carriers and landing in the night.
My dad was in the Navy.
Oh, is that right?
Are we set? Chinese, he set?
Some great stories.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We'd like to call the meeting back to order, public meeting. And the first order of business is to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Do I have a motion?
Moved.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments, suggestions, corrections? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, the minutes are approved, and with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Montesano.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I hope you all had a nice, healthy, and restful spring break. It's hard to believe that we're winding down the school year. We've only a couple of months left, and certainly went very quick for me in my first year here, at times. But it's been terrific, and I'm looking forward to the end of the year and moving forward. We have a couple of exciting things to do this evening during my report. And if you don't mind, I'd like to do the tenure appointments first and then ask the students to come in and present the portfolio projects second, if that's okay with everyone. And I'd just like to quickly talk about tenure first. Because for me, one of the best moments in an educator's career is that the day that they are recommended and receive tenure from a district. And I remember early on in my career when I received tenure first as a teacher and then as a principal, and it really being a true highlight for me, and I imagine for every teacher as well and every staff member, it's viewed as a privilege and not a right, and it needs to be earned. It's a moment when you feel rewarded for the hard work and effort you put into things, the way you do your job in an outstanding way, and become better at your craft. And I use the word outstanding, or perhaps in our case it could be excellent, purposely. In Bronxville, it's well established that in order for someone to earn and achieve tenure, you have to go through what is now a 4-year process of evaluation. And throughout that period, not only do you need to demonstrate excellence at what you do, but that you'll also have work to contribute to the school community. And further, it's the belief of those recommending tenure that the person has not only demonstrated excellence in and outside of the classroom, but they also have the qualities that will allow them to continue to grow, learn, improve their practice, and add to our overall community. I'm very pleased tonight that we have 2 such individuals who are being recommended to the board for tenure. And I'm going to ask their immediate supervisors to introduce the tenure candidates, speak about some of their highlights, so you get a better perspective on all the work that they've been doing. And first, I'd like to introduce Dr. Mara Ketke, our Director of Curriculum, to introduce our first tenure candidate, Jennifer Forsberg.
Good evening. Since her arrival in 2015, Jennifer has amassed a long list of accomplishments. Her pace and enthusiasm are a model for the entire leadership team. Her accomplishments include leading a seamless transition to a new student information system, creating a smart schools bond application that was approved by the New York State Education Department, which has allowed us to significantly expand our students' access to technology, successfully coordinating planned infrastructure upgrades, and collaborating with Syntax to expand our presence on social media. Jennifer planned and implemented a K-5 coding curriculum and continually helped to revise the middle school curriculum based on the work of the elementary school. She has collaborated with high school faculty to expand computer science offerings, and she established the Student Help Desk, which is the envy of many school districts, and offered professional development to our teachers, including Logic Wing and model schools, for integration of technology through a cohort model. Jennifer engages with all community stakeholders to ensure that our students are prepared for an ever-expanding digital world. She has partnered with the Be Well Committee of the PTA and worked tirelessly with the Bronxville Foundation to establish grants to further the district's technology offerings. Most recently, Jennifer was a recipient of the TEL Award, which is given by the Lower Hudson Regional Information Center to leaders who demonstrate outstanding and innovative approaches to technology integration. She exemplifies the qualities of leadership and innovation, a must for any instructional technologist, and it's my absolute pleasure to work with her every day. Congratulations, Jennifer.
Okay, we're going to move them both at the same time after we get done introducing the second candidate. So at this time, I'd like to invite Tricia Murray up to speak a little about Mr. Isidoro Fattori.
Good evening. It is with great pleasure that I talk about Izzy Fattori this evening. He's our elementary library media specialist. Izzy has helped create a curriculum for elementary library that includes appropriate library standards, digital literacies, and especially digital citizenship, which is an element that was not included before. Izzy has been instrumental in the creation of the elementary school makerspace. He has transformed our library into a space where students not only learn about library and digital literacies, but also about innovation and problem solving. Izzy has proven himself to be very collaborative. He's collaborated successfully with classroom teachers to support the needs of our PBL research projects. He collaborates with teachers when designing challenges in the makerspace to ensure that he is meeting the needs of our students. It is my great pleasure to work with Izzy every day and to have him here, making our elementary school even a better place to be. So congratulations, Izzy.
Okay, with that, do I have a motion to approve Jennifer and Izzy tenure? We have a motion and a second. Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Congratulations, Jennifer and Izzy. These are both vital parts of our innovation in our school and the Bronxville Promise, especially I remember years ago when we needed to dramatically improve our technology throughout the school and enhancements and communications with parents and teachers, and Jennifer has stepped up and really done a great job in leading that. And Izzy in the library, we've talked about what is new in the library and what can we do for our kids to make this more technologically proficient, and she's done a great job with that too. So congratulations to both of you on two outstanding new tenured teachers for the school. So with that, Dr. Mastasano,
Yes, thank you.
Want to go back to you?
So I'm glad you mentioned the Bronxville Promise, because that's what the next presentation is all about, and how the Bronxville Promise is really taking hold in our schools, and some of the real work that our students have been involved in that speaks to the dispositions of the promise. So I'm going to ask Dr. Ketke to come back up to introduce the portfolio project to you, and I know we have a couple of students who are going to just wow you with their presentation this evening.
So in prior meetings earlier in this fall, we talked a little bit about our assessment framework for the Bronxville Promise to really focus on how do we know our students are developing in these 4 areas of leadership, innovation, critical thinking, and engaged citizenship. And tonight we'll be talking about some qualitative, summative information. Students in primarily seniors in a culminating experience led by Ms. Denise Flood, really collected a lot of their work they've done over the years in their career in Bronxville and thought about them in terms of the 4 dispositions of the promise and used indicators, outcomes, and definitions created by the faculty to reflect on that work and think about how they've grown in those areas. So it's my pleasure to introduce Denise tonight, who will talk to you a little bit about the WISE course which these students are involved in.
Good evening, everyone. I'm excited to share the work of some of our students and excited to be part of this program. The WISE internship program is an opportunity for seniors at Bronxville to engage in a variety of internships, medicine, engineering, teaching, through this program called the WISE Individualized Senior Experience. In the program, students individually design an internship and research project. It's designed for students to take all that they've learned in Bronxville, to extend their thinking beyond the classroom, to become actively involved in the community at large and the community outside of Bronxville, and then to explore possible career interests. The students in the first semester begin design their internship, and then the second semester they embark on their internship. So in the process of planning in the first semester, students are in a design phase. So what I've had students do in the design phase is to take the Bronxville Promise and use that as a lens through which to look at their experience at Bronxville. The students use the indicators and outcomes for each disposition of the promise and reflected on the opportunities that they had to become leaders, innovators, critical thinkers, and engaged citizens. Then they used all this information and digitized it into a digital portfolio, and then they used that information to design their second semester internship. The reflection process is always amazing and quite powerful, and I'm excited to have two students with us tonight to share their experience, and the first is Hadley Barr.
Hi everyone, my name is Hadley Barr and this is my 13th year at Bronxville. So before I get started, I just want to point your attention to this picture. This is me at 2.5 years old, and as you can see I'm smiling. I apparently loved pink and fuzzy boas. But right before this picture was taken, there's a similar image somewhere in my house where the little girl who was smiling looks more like this, and she has a very pouty face. And so when I was younger, I was the most stubborn and independent little child that you probably would have ever met. I created my own ideas and stuck to them, and I wanted to discover anything I possibly could on my own, despite what my parents would say. This was taken when we lived in New York City, and shortly after we moved to Bronxville. So since growing up here for the last 16 years, I sort of lost touch with this little girl and the superhero that she was at the time. But I think that in the last couple of years, I've been able to reflect on my experiences, and my fulfillment of the Bronxville Promise really stems from her. So I'm going to be talking about my engaged citizen part of the Bronxville portfolio. And so with this, I'm going to talk about the One Love Foundation and my work with it. So during the fall of my sophomore year, I participated in One Love's escalation workshop. And so basically what this is it's a video and a discussion about a couple whose relationship starts off being really healthy and eventually it escalates into being an unhealthy one. And I was kind of struck by this, and I didn't really know a lot about it prior to watching the video. But my friend Hannah Wyrens and I created a club called the One Love Club at Bronxville, and we really did not know how to go about doing this. We had never been in a leadership position before, but we did know that One Love was really deeply rooted in Bronxville, especially because the offices are located in town, and Sharon Robinson is Yardley's cousin, the woman who the foundation's based on, is the girls varsity lacrosse coach at Bronxville. So we started off by doing some very basic bake sales and tabling events for some of the campaigns, but eventually worked up to having some students participate in an internship and campus ambassador program at One Love this past semester, and we've now introduced escalation into the health classes at Bronxville, and we've completed our first round of that. So One Love has also provided me with several opportunities outside of school and outside of Bronxville. And the first is during my junior year, I was invited to apply to a fellowship to go to a conference called This Gen Youth Summit in Washington, D.C. And shortly after applying, I found out that I received the fellowship. So in March of my junior year, I went down to Washington, D.C. and participated in this week-long conference. I got to miss a week of school, which is really cool. So the goal of the conference was to create a call to action that we presented at the end of the week at a rally on Capitol Hill. and this was done using social media, platforms of social media, sports, community planning, and legislation. And so when I first got there, I was a little scared and kind of confused. I didn't really know if this was something that I was really passionate about, and I was just trying to explore more about my voice and who I was. And that feeling kind of continued until that night we went to dinner. And I was sitting there, and I was talking to one of the leaders named Cheyenne. And so I was really struck by Cheyenne's story. She told me about her own sexual assault and at William Patterson University her senior year in New Jersey. And she told me about how she had been helping herself to heal and helping other women to heal. And so from that moment on, I kind of realized that I really need to take advantage of my time in Washington, D.C. And try to understand more about this issue so that I could bring this information back to Bronxville. So in being here, I really learned a lot about gender-based violence, and I learned more about myself and about the kids who were there with me that week. And I just want to read a little part of the statement that my group created. I was in the sports group. So by modeling relationships based on respect, acceptance, and inclusivity, our generation will define the standards that we promote, period. And I think that this is the first time that I was brought outside of the Bronxville bubble, as I like to call it, and I feel like sometimes in Bronxville, especially in high school, we can feel very closed in and very sheltered. And by being able to have this experience to travel outside of the town by myself, which was craziness at the time, I really learned a lot about myself. So I want to kind of change pace a little bit here and talk about some of my experiences in the classroom. So during my sophomore year, around the time when I was learning about One Love, I was watching CNN on a Friday night, and I saw that the Paris attacks were kind of unraveling at the time. And for some reason, I was really upset. Obviously, I was really upset by this, but for some reason, it impacted me and stuck with me more so than other events that I'd seen on TV. And so I sent an email to Dr. Maxwell, my English teacher at the time, and expressed my confusion and my upset feelings. And we decided to create an independent study based on what my experience with watching this unfold. And in the end, we created an independent study for the second semester of my sophomore year, where I talked about social media and how it's a very dangerous and powerful tool when paired with terrorism, especially when it's directed at young adults. And so this was the first time that I'd written a research paper, like full-length one. And I think that the most important part about this was that I was able to question and analyze the world around me, which is something that I feel like sometimes in the classroom can get lost. And I was also able to create my own ideas after listening and considering other people's opinions. So the other thing that I want to talk about within the classroom is my humanities research paper. And this kind of ties in with my work with One Love, but I'm currently enrolled in Mr. Meyer's humanities class, and I thought that it was fitting, especially because of the Me Too movement and the fact that I'm going to college next year, that I focus on sexual assault on college campuses and the impact it has on a student's education. So taking what I learned from Dr. Maxwell's, my independent study with him, and Mr. Meyer's research tactics, I kind of merged those two things together and created my own individualized research process and writing process that I was able to use to write this paper. And I think that the most important part about a course like humanities is that we're able to investigate a topic that we're actually interested in, and I feel like that's something that we don't do too often in the classroom as well. For instance, I'm not a very big history person, so writing a paper on World War II is not something I have an insane passion about, but being able to choose something and then really investigate more about it is something that I find very, very special. So I want to go back to the picture that I talked about at the beginning, and this little girl. So as I said, I was really stubborn and really independent at the time, but coming into my freshman year, I was this mousy, shy, unpassionate person who really didn't know anything about herself. And so I remember my freshman year, my mom said to me, "Had, you have to find a passion." And I've realized through One Love and through my reflection over the last 2 years that this little girl, this little superhero, is really rooted deeply inside me still. And I'm very proud to say that the Bronxville Promise has reminded me of this. So thank you. Next, I want to welcome Lucy Rizzo.
Hi, my name's Lucy Rizzo, and I'm also a senior in Hadley's class. So today for the WISE portfolio, I'm mostly going to be focusing on my personal definition of what innovation is. What I've realized in the last 3 or so years is that my worst days have been on the most beautiful, and I've realized I have found this deep connection with icky weather, particularly the rain, those gross days where you don't want to go outside. I think those are the best days to run around and enjoy the outdoors, even though many disagree with me. But this year for my senior AP Studio class, we create an individualized concentration based on a theme that is unique to each of us. And this process is very long and continuous. Our class and Miss Allen, our teacher, they all include their own opinions on our theme, and it takes about a month to create this perfect statement that we submit to the college board. So my concentration is challenging the perspective of people's perspective and negative connotation with rain, while also challenging color theory, and color theory is the emotions that we hold with different colors, and trying to change people's emotion of both these things that I have a completely unique and different perspective on. So my concentration, this is one of the pieces. It's outlining different events that I think are happy that I've associated with the rain. And I began interviewing a lot of my classmates to think of what they thought of the rain, and a lot of their responses were you should paint something that's gray and groggy and sad. And I was like, no, that's not what I want to express in my concentration. I want it to be bright and colorful. And for someone looking at the art show not to realize what my concentration is about until they go up and look at each of the individual watercolor paintings that I've created and then my statement. So I felt this really embodied Bronxville's Promise lens of innovation, because this is something I've created unique to this AP Studio class, and has really challenged my own thinking process and also challenging people's perspective of something so simple as the rain or a rainy day. Another thing that I want to talk about is the arts have been very impactful for my experience at Bronxville. Miss Allen in particular has been pretty much my mentor for the last 3 years. She is who I am doing my WISE internship with. I was in her AP Art History class last year, and while it was probably the hardest class I've been in and probably not my best grades, I'm shadowing one of her AP Art History classes during the morning that consists of only 7 people. It's just sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And I've helped Miss Allen create different study tactics and testing curriculum in her classes for these students, because last year being in only one class, there's 2 this year, there's only 1 last year, it was really difficult to pretty much learn all the 250 image sets that the College Board asks of you. So this year I'm trying to help Miss Allen find different tactics to help the students understand the 250 image sets, and it's a completely different position being a student in her class last year and now being in more of a teaching role per se, leadership role in the classroom. And I'm also shadowing one of her ceramics class. So through these 2 different classes, I've gotten to know a lot of students in the Bronxville school that I wouldn't have known otherwise had I not done this internship with Miss Allen. And it's also opened my eyes about the education field and whether or not it's worth something pursuing later in life now that I'm going away to college. So this experience with WISE has been very eye-opening, and especially my relationship with Miss Allen has grown a lot because of the WISE program, and I'm really grateful for that. especially having such a big transition, being her student last year and now being more of like an equal per se in this WISE experience. So yeah, thank you.
I don't see that here. Okay, so we wanted to talk a little bit. This is the first time we've really had students do this process. And we consider this sort of a baseline experience, although those were amazing reflections and wonderful things for us to hear about and celebrate as you close out your experience here. But we gathered a few weeks ago with curriculum leaders from the high school to hear presentations from about 10 students. And we're going to be doing this tomorrow as well as part of a district-wide faculty. What we noticed was great evidence of reflection. Stories shared were those of struggle and growth. Very often they demonstrated vulnerability. In many cases, it was a visual display of grit and perseverance, deeper connections to the Bronxville Promise, and visioning for the future. One student remarked that she thought the Bronxville Promise was like grounding values for me when I get lost, and she appreciated taking those ideals with her as she moves forward into college. We saw many students capitalizing on choice in the curriculum, as you heard from two of our students this evening. The definitions and the indicators we've worked so hard to create were definitely helpful in terms of student reflection. They were surprised at what all they have done, and another student commented, "It opened my eyes to what the promise is trying to give students." In terms of implications for curriculum, many students shared experiences from independent study. So as we move forward with this process, we are hoping to incorporate more open-ended questions and problems into the core curriculum, as we see the independent studies have been so impactful to our students. These learning experiences are authentic, and again, they point to the importance of choice, which reinforces many of the things we've learned through our project-based learning work. We saw, as you did tonight, evidence of empathy and compassion, and this process just reinforced the idea that a scaffolded project, in this case the scaffolds were the definitions of the dispositions. With rehearsal, students actually worked very hard to rehearse these, worked with Ms. Flood as well as a coach to help them present this information, and presenting in front of a real audience being a very impactful curriculum. So what are some next steps as of now, and we hope to find out more from our faculty tomorrow. We are hoping to see more artifacts from a variety of core courses in the future. And we feel that this is good evidence for more opportunities for students to reflect on their work throughout the experience here in Bronxville, not just only as a capstone or ending project. We are considering having a capstone at different transition points. We have created curriculum at elementary, middle, and high school level that aligns with the dispositions, so potentially we can bring in reflection points earlier, so students have built capacity to do that all the way through. And for the WISE course this year, we had 44 students participate, but we are considering, is this something we could expand to have all students do as sort of a capstone and ending reflective experience as they complete their work in Bronxville.
Great.
Questions for us?
Any questions? Thank you, Hadley and Lucy. Those were terrific presentations. A few years ago when we implemented the Bronxville Promise, and people said, well, now what? And why did we do it? And at the time, we said we needed, beyond the academic disciplines that we had, and we've always had very outstanding results here in Bronxville, we said we need our students to be better prepared for life, better prepared for college, better prepared for their jobs, and what more could we do? And we developed through teachers and administration and the board, we developed the principles of the Bronxville Promise. This is an evolving thing. We weren't sure how it would work. We hired Mara to be our curriculum leader to help us to drive this through our curriculum and drive it through and help our teachers to deliver on this. And we're starting to see that come to fruition. And it's by no means the end. I think that even you just said, we're starting to see what can come of this. And we said that the change is happening so quickly, and the jobs our kids are going to have. As I said recently, I read where 65% of our elementary school students will have jobs that don't exist today. So it's a matter of people being flexible. So I think it's turning out great. And so I thank you very much for that. On WISE, since we're talking about WISE, and I had the benefit of I was at the senior council meeting. Ann, could you just tell everyone what you said there about how WISE has expanded from where we started just a couple of years ago to where it is now?
Right, so my first year, since this is my 5th year as high school principal, my first year we had 5 students participating in WISE.
This is an internship program there last year, right?
Second semester, senior year. And we really built it with Denise Flood's help into something that is through the whole year, prepare students for that second semester. And the last 2 years, we've had about 45 students participate. And I think, Hadley and Lucy could speak to this, but it's a very meaningful experience at the end of senior year to get out into the real world and do real work. And you can see that it helps them reflect on all of that in-class experience that they had during their time in high school.
But how many, I thought there was a number of opportunities that you said that we had going into this year.
You might be, are you thinking about
Shadowing.
shadowing?
Yeah.
That's an additional opportunity that we provide for the whole senior class.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I
that's
was,
the final 2 weeks of school.
okay. Any other questions? Any other comments? Okay, well, thank you very much, Mara
Thank
and
you
Denise.
to Denise Flood also, who coached these students and was really willing to take this on. It was an incredible leap of faith and risk-taking, which is part of the promise, and we appreciate her leadership of these students tonight. Thank you so much.
Okay, let's move. I think next, Dr. Kelly, I think you're up next.
Good evening, everyone. An additional shout out and congratulations to both Jen and Izzy. We're grateful for everything you've done for our students and our community. Tonight, a relatively short personnel agenda. You have before you the first 3 items as they result to FMLA requests, leave replacements, as well as tonight is the night that we would typically appoint the election personnel for our annual school budget vote and board election, which is on May 15th this year, as well as 2 new coaches and a revised spring coaching roster. Those are items A through I.
We did have these in advance. Do I have a motion to approve A through I?
Move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Great. Those are approved.
Thank you.
Mr. Carlin.
The board has received a financial summary prepared by me, which shows us pretty much in the same financial condition with the general fund that we were in last month, with enough of a current year surplus to more than cover the allocation of fund balance that is going to reduce the tax levy in next year's budget. We'll get these numbers a little more refined over the next few weeks as we begin closing down all open purchase orders. We've limited purchase orders by the end of the month to be issued, so we'll get a very good handle, hopefully by the end of April, exactly where we'll finish. No financial action items tonight.
Good. Saving money this month.
Have you already played them?
I have not played as yet.
The board has the real property tax report
get
card
done
that gets
fast.
filed and printed and distributed in our budget documents. It's no new information. It's all been discussed in the budget process, but this makes it official with the state. Do we need to do anything with this? We need a vote to accept it, or a vote to approve the real property tax report card?
So this information, I did look at it, looks like all the same information that's
Yeah.
in the budget that was approved. Okay, do I have a motion to approve this? We have a motion and second?
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any questions on this at all? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Mr. Cronin, that's approved.
Now we get to the reason to why this meeting's on a Tuesday night. The Southern Westchester BOCES annual budget vote is required for all the component districts in Southern Westchester to vote for or against the budget on the same night. The board has received the BOCES budget documents as well as a little summary of the history. And I think, Connie, I'm going to hand it over to you to conduct the vote if the board wants any discussion on it beforehand.
Well, are we gonna cover the candidates as well, all in one vote? Is that it?
You have one for each, two total. I'm here to help.
Good thing you're here.
Spoken as a true attorney.
We use certain BOCES services extensively. We use the cooperative transportation. Without BOCES for cooperative transportation for transporting private school students within a 15-mile radius, we would be sunk. That service costs us around $700,000. If we had to do it ourselves and just bus our own kids, it would be at least double that.
Yes.
Those are separate funds within the BOCES budget, though.
Yeah.
Correct, right, okay.
And we also use them extensively for technology services and some special education services occasionally. That's probably and then also some model schools, curriculum type stuff. Yep.
Technology.
Technology, we have BOCES employees in our buildings as technicians. They run our network for the most part. Anything else? That's about it. Network maintenance and internet connectivity, that kind of stuff.
But none of those items are within this budget that we're
No,
approving.
we're voting tonight on the administrative and capital budget, which all component districts are allocated based on their weighted average daily attendance.
I'm a little confused by the capital budget. Why the capital budget is considered sort of wrapped in with normal annual operations.
Yeah, we just vote on the administrative budget. They give us the capital budget. We have to. We're required to pay for that whether we vote down the administrative budget or not.
Oh, I see, okay. It's a good deal. Okay, and you want to highlight, you sent out some information with respect to this. You didn't separate the administration from the capital, but the capital budget, administration with retirement is about a 4.5% increase this year.
Typically, boards in the past have voted for or against the BOCES budget. They've typically voted against the BOCES budget when BOCES costs have been in excess of, increases have been in excess of percentage increases that we're seeing in our own budget. And some of these increases this year are above what we're seeing in our own budget.
Yeah, retirement costs are in excess of the other administration costs
Mm-hmm.
and increasing at an alarming rate, really. But
Yeah, they're required to carry their retirement costs in their administrative budget.
So is there any part of this budget that concerns you? All of it? More than others?
The retiree benefits piece has grown at a much greater rate than even our own benefits and retiree benefits has grown. I think they do a decent job holding a line on administrative costs. As you can see, they've been down over the last few years. Probably they're squeezing to offset some of their retiree costs.
now, are their retiree costs part of a state funding thing, or
It's
they're
mostly
just-
health. No, it's mostly health costs that we component districts have to pay for BOCES.
Is there a reason, the ratio of current employees versus retired employees, like did something happen where they just, everybody goes there to work there shortly and then goes and.
I don't know.
The
You know,
demographics seem weird.
they're smaller now than they used to be. I know that. So I imagine they're carrying retirees in their budget are probably weighted higher than current employees because they've downsized over the last few years. But I couldn't speak to any of the specifics.
So what voice do we really have?
Arlene,
One of about 20-something, or, our vote counts the same as, say, Mount Vernon or Scarsdale or I can't remember offhand how many component districts there are. There's 20-something involved. So your vote is, as a board, is one of 24 against the administrative budget.
How are their healthcare benefit packages determined? I mean,
They-
you say that we have to
They
do certain
they
things, but
participate in the New York State health insurance plan, the night shift plan. They're not participating in our consortium that we participate in. So their healthcare costs are kind of dictated to them in terms of their retirees. So they're subject to whatever the state determines they're going to increase by this year. And if our consortium increased by about 4%, I think night shift was probably higher than that.
but you have retiree benefits. I mean, that's what's growing so fast. And you're
Yeah.
saying the healthcare is in the retiree.
Yes.
You're saying that's the. That's the-
Yes.
I would think that the real answer to Arlene's question, is to be involved before this stage, not at the time of the vote, whether it's Roy participating or as board members participating in a budget, in an advisory committee as the budget is being developed.
well, yeah, if we have to pay for stuff, it's kind of nice to have a voice in what the stuff is.
Sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, they have come to present budgets at superintendent meetings, and they've spoken about the challenges they've had in negotiations with their employees, and they have not been able to move the needle very much on the retiree health care.
I'd like to nominate
Benefits.
Tom Curran, go and be with him.
And we don't participate in that
In my
part of it.
spare time, yeah.
We don't have an opportunity to participate in that part of it. We just get reported to, but that's their challenge. And
That's their
they've
job.
actually had contracts that for a while, I don't know how long, but 4 years in a row where they've had an unsettled contract because there's just no movement on the retirement health care benefits.
So do you start to send a message if the board did vote no?
Only if the other 20-some-odd boards voted no as well.
So one or
Well,
two
you
doesn't
still
help.
can send a message.
Yes, you can individually, but it
Yeah,
obviously
if
is
their
more power
budget gets
collectively.
voted down, they're restricted at the prior year's budget.
Right.
Okay. So they're not going out of business if we and 10 others of the 20 said no to this, they would just be under their prior arrangements, prior year's arrangements.
Yep.
Okay.
Which may not be better, by the way. Oh, because.
Well, it couldn't be worse, right?
Well, potentially,
How?
Well, are there percentage increases built in? So even
because,
if we.
right, there might be that, but I don't know if they've negotiated anything else this year that's helpful. So by going backwards, that all stays.
Well, how likely does that sound to you when we've had described to us a line that's kind of going off?
Because they've been held so tightly to their retirement benefits, you know, that they don't, that salary increases have not been, they've been very minimal. So I don't know by going backwards, not backwards, same, if that helps or doesn't help. I really don't know, to be honest with you. I'm just raising.
I mean, retiree benefits were 4,352,000 in 14, and 5 years later, they're projected to be 6,864,000.
Yeah.
So like a 50% increase in retirement benefits. So I don't know whether they early retired people and they all have benefits now, and they just moved them from one line to the next, or what. It's hard to know.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's.
And I
We
think,
have all the information.
yes, and
we're gonna get.
Michael had a question about why our percentage for the administration seems to be going up.
We're just in total.
Yeah, and it's because the last 4 years, this is like a 2-year look back on enrollment, and our enrollment was climbing steeply over that period until about 2 years ago, when it started to level off and go down. So I would say 2 years from now, we should start to see those large increases due to enrollment go down.
So it's a 2-year, it's not an average, they're taking our enrollment 2 years ago.
Our enrollment as it compares to the enrollment in all the other component districts. And we were growing at a substantially higher rate during that period of time.
Well, plus if
than
the,
most of the other
if
districts.
all of the districts have a reduction in the number of students, the rates are gonna go up at a
Exactly.
increasing. I just wanna be clear again, because I asked you and I thought I had an answer, but then I heard a different answer. Retirement the pension that their employees get, it's part of the teachers, the state teachers?
Yes, they're in the
pension?
teacher's retirement system and the employer's retirement system,
So
just
they're
like our
so
employees
they're
are.
allocated that, so that's not their teachers, just like it's not ours. Our retirement is not our individual teachers, it's just the allocation from the state
Correct.
based upon our salaries.
For the pension piece, yes. For the healthcare
healthcare,
piece, no.
Okay, got it. No, I understand, okay.
Yep.
All right, well, let's just call a question on this. You have all the information you're going to get. Do I have a motion? Let's have a motion in a second, and then we can.
Second.
Motion, a second, okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving this budget, just raise your hand, just in case. We have 1, 2, 3. 3 in favor, all opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4 opposed. Okay.
Let's see. Where we
Oh, we have to do the other resolution on the
Yep.
candidates?
Yeah, the candidates.
Okay. Okay, you were sent in advance
And the budget, right?
information on the 2 candidates for BOCES for their board. Do I have a motion to approve those 2 candidates? We have a motion and a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion, questions on those candidates? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed on the candidates? Okay, candidates are,
Yeah, sure.
all,
Jeff, I would suggest that either you or Roy indicate to BOCES that as the budget is being developed next year, that Bronxville would like to have a representative involved. So we
Second.
don't come to this come to this place again next year.
Second,
All right. Got it.
it's a great idea.
Thank you, John.
I nominate Jack.
No, you don't.
And Roy,
I'll
does
go.
Does that vote put you in a bad place
Nope.
at all? Okay.
I don't mind being in a bad
Okay,
place. I'll go.
You're used to it, I'm not.
next on the agenda,
repent.
is it, Connie, next committee reports? Oh,
Facilities.
facilities.
Did we vote on the candidates?
Yeah, we did.
Okay. Facilities update. We had a lot of water here yesterday. Unfortunately, I was off-site, but I was monitoring it from afar. And there was a lot of concern. If we have these new pumps, why are we getting water in our parking lot? So the engineer who designed the system came down and assured us that it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. The parking lots were designed, doesn't answer about Meadow Avenue, but the parking lots were designed to hold water in the event of an incident.
Close friends of mine.
Much the same as the retention tanks under Hayes Field hold the water, and then pump it out. So they were doing their job in that before the pumps were installed, if we had this amount of water that we had, we would have had water coming into the building from the elementary school lot. And that did not happen.
The page.
In talking to the engineer when he was here yesterday, he told us that there's these internal mechanisms called weirs that determine the level of water where it starts to get pumped. And we're looking into it with the engineer, perhaps lowering those weirs to keep the level of the parking lot lower. But we don't know what the impact of that would be if we had a 100-year issue. So we're having him look into that. But from what I understand, we may be able to adjust that down.
Dan, I was going to suggest that perhaps we use yesterday's experience to try to goad the state education department to give us approval for the next 3 faster than they might. I said
Sure.
to Tom, my one nightmare is that approval of those 3 pumps would still be sitting in Albany when all of a sudden we have another 100-year
Yeah.
flood and it's too late.
If yesterday was a 10-year incident
Right.
that could be handled with those 2 pumps,
mean,
and if we have a 100-year one that can't, while
They
we're
already
waiting for them,
approved
sure.
2 before,
Yep.
so they met their specifications. And I don't know, I know that different projects have different waiting periods, but
Mhm.
I'm told that they're really long right now. So maybe they would be willing to consider approving those, even if they're not gonna do the other stuff, approving those ahead of schedule on the basis of that experience.
We'll certainly give it a shot.
That, just so you're aware, the pumps are gonna be put on the a project that we're asking for a third-party expedited review,
Yep.
which right now is about a 10 to 12-week backlog. And
With
we
my
also,
luck, there would be the hurricane in about 9.5 weeks.
we also have, our architects have communicated with the person at the state ed to
Yeah.
try to expedite the approval of the plans for the pumps as well. So
Yeah.
we have some communication going on now.
That'd be great.
And, regarding the water yesterday, I'd also like to thank the village. The chief is always helpful. As soon as he hears that we have water in our lot, he opens up Pond Field for parking, and we, begin moving all the cars, and I guess we're used to it.
But Jack, it is important, the second pump didn't start yesterday. So we did have a look,
Oh, no,
supposedly a little
I'm
bit.
just
No, I
thinking,
understand.
take
Yeah.
the experience of
10.
yesterday
Right,
and see
Sure.
if we can use that.
As leverage, absolutely.
I mean, because
Yeah.
what we're asking for is exactly the same thing as they've already approved.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And so we
On a
have,
pad where I know they have, there's more than just plugging it in.
It's
but
there and waiting, basically, yep. And we had a coordination meeting last week with representatives from ABB and LAN. So we're moving along with both the Chambers Field project and trying to tie that with an internal project, as Roy mentioned, for an expedited review, which also includes whether it includes the playground or not. The playground will be going in this summer. I've been working with Tricia Murray. We have a couple of vendors and have settled on one plan. So that should be decided and ordered fairly soon. So we're looking forward to getting that installed over the summer.
Okay, anything else, Dan?
That's it for now.
Thanks, Dan.
Back to you for textbooks and,
Yeah, we have one item requesting a new textbook for 9th and 10th grade social studies, world history. With a new copyright date, there's an intricate digital presence as part of that textbook. If you saw the textbook before, it's like carrying a backpack size. There's a lot of history in there, apparently. But fortunately, our kids will not have to bring that back and forth home because there's a large digital presence that has videos and interactive things as well. So it is a replacement textbook. So we ask for your approval.
What is the procedure when we decide to go about getting a new textbook that's maybe different than the one we have? I think this was updated from what we have, right? Yeah. Is that right? This was an updated from the version we have.
The history
today?
textbook?
This is a new one.
But it's replacing an old
It's
one.
replacing that one.
But it is
Yeah.
replacing.
But do you review other vendors that have something
Yeah.
and then?
They usually look at 5 or 6, and they make a decision as a department. Ann and I will, hear from them in terms of their review, and we also, can weigh in to what the decision is. But generally, they look at several.
Okay.
And isn't what drove this particular decision is that the standards for 9th and 10th grade global history have changed? So we needed to. They also haven't updated in a while, but the new standards and some of the testing associated with those grades have prompted a discussion about new material. Textbooks.
And was the reference to Google Glasses one of the things that was attested, that you did a workshop on a couple of months ago?
That was augmented reality.
That was augmented reality?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we have done Google expeditions in classes and had Google come for that as
Okay.
well.
But this is a line, so students can actually see those things, that they'll be studying it out of the textbooks in that way.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
I just have to ask, do you see a time when there will no longer be printed textbooks? I just have to
Well,
ask.
in history, it's not that easy to get one. They like to do things digitally to sort of update materials. I think, but right now what's happening is you buy the book and then you buy access.
Right.
Which gives you access to the actual texts and also all these additional sort of technology pieces. They're definitely, they want you to buy the subscription more than they care about the actual physical book.
Right.
So the business model is moving in that way.
okay, do I have a motion to approve?
Move.
In a second, okay, we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Second.
Okay, that is approved, and we have the French
Trip?
French exchange. Toby Gillen is proposing I guess every 2 years we do a French exchange. This one would be February 17th to March 2nd, 2019. Our policy now requires the board to approve these trips, and the board can also rescind that approval if it deems such an exchange or trip to be too dangerous, or if the climate changes over that period of time. And we require our participants to purchase trip insurance through the vendor for just that reason. I think there was a question from somebody regarding the insurance policy, which we're still trying to nail down, whether that is terrorism or something of that nature could be a cause for canceling the trip. Toby Gillen, who arranged the trip, seems to think that she negotiated that, so we're going to double check and make sure it's in there before we, start signing people up for the trip. But in order to get it going, we're asking the board to approve the trip.
And who pays for is this paid by students?
Yes.
Actually, paid by parents.
Yes.
Is there financial aid for those? I mean, is there a mechanism for folks who?
Principal has a discretionary fund. You have a discretionary fund for those who might need support financially.
So we have trip cancellation insurance, but our insurance covers.
Our insurance would cover anybody who was hurt or anything that went wrong over there if the board approves the trip.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the trip?
Second.
You have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that trip is approved. Thank you very much. And so, is that the
That's it?
end?
Yep.
Committee reports? Do we have any committee reports at the meeting today? Okay, thank you. We can move into public session. Again, we invite the public to speak. And as always, we'd like the comments to be very brief and not replicative of previous comments from other meetings. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Sean Abbott. I am the parent of a student here at the Bronxville School. She's waiting for me nearby, so I have to speed this along. I am also a working journalist, and my daily newspaper, the Bronxville Surrealist, is available online. Just type bronxville.solutions into any web browser. Since Halloween 2017, we have been reporting on something called Cured in Place Piping, or CIPP, here in Bronxville. The advantage of CIPP is that you do not have to extract and replace century-old pipes. You push a plastic resin liner into the leaky old pipe and melt the liner with steam, creating a new seal. The disadvantage of CIPP is that this method has been found by Purdue University with support from the National Science Foundation to release cancer-causing and endocrine-disrupting compounds into the air. Endocrine disruptors. This especially needs to be a concern to any board of education, I feel. To quote Wikipedia, endocrine disruptors may be associated with the development of learning disabilities, severe attention deficit disorder, cognitive and brain development problems, deformations of the body, including limbs, breast cancer, prostate cancer, thyroid, and other cancers, sexual development problems such as feminizing of males or masculinizing effects on females, etc., close quotes. Volatile chemicals are released during installation of CIPP and continue to be released for 6 months following installation. Purdue University did not study what cured in place piping does to the groundwater. I am here tonight to follow up on the question I put to this board at your March 22 meeting. It is the same question I put to Dr. Roy Montesano, Superintendent of Schools, when I met with him on February 12. When and where was CIPP placed, quote, under the school? I'm quoting Jim Palmer, Village Administrator. What type of CIPP process was used? When will it happen again? I learned today from Roy that Mr. Carlin is to get back to me on these questions, and I look forward to that conversation. But not if it's the same conversation I've been having for months now with Village Administrator Jim Palmer. Mr. Palmer, who lives in Mount Kisco, New York, and Chimney Hill, Vermont, insists that CIPP is safe while refusing to acknowledge overwhelming evidence to the contrary by a team of scientists not employed by the industry. When I asked Jim if he would expose his own young children to CIPP, as Bronxville's children were exposed over several hours on Halloween night, right outside the school, Mr. Palmer refused to answer the question. What he said was, I'm familiar with the process. Jim Palmer and Mayor Mary Marvin have refused, in fact, to answer any of our questions about an industrial process that Purdue University and the National Science Foundation urge communities to learn more about before they permit CIPP anywhere near their businesses, homes, and schools. So I'm asking this board to tell me what it knows about CIPP in and around the Bronxville school. We have not had a serious incident here in Bronxville, as happened in Nyack, New York last summer, but why risk it at all? I urge you to go to bronxville.solutions to see for yourself the extremely worrying data we have assembled there. CIPP is still being installed in Bronxville Village. We don't know when, because the village won't tell us. Finally, and the real reason I'm going to all this trouble, I see cured-in-place piping as emblematic of a tendency by governing bodies to sign on to newfangled methods that have never been formally tested, or if they have been tested, they've been tested by the very industries selling us these things while insisting they are safe, also that they work when they don't. I served for 5 years as a trustee of Bronxville Public Library. I spent most of that time dealing with various infrastructure failures and listening to contractors' excuses about their own work or listening to their accusations against some other contractor. But the fault lies squarely with us, we who serve on these boards. It is our obligation to view with utmost skepticism every claim that is being made about some piece of technology. I close by directing your attention to the special investigation in the April 23 issue of The Nation magazine. If you are thinking of getting your kid her first cell phone, you will want to read this article called How Big Wireless Made Us Think That Cell Phones Are Safe. It is all spilling out now. We have been irradiating our children for decades.
So are we moving from the sewers to cell phones now?
No,
I'm just trying to follow this.
I'm going to, you'll understand the connection if you let me finish.
I understand you made the same comments last meeting, although I'm sorry I wasn't able to be here.
I can assure you all will become very clear.
Well, let's not repeat everything that you've already told the board.
I'm asking a question as well as bringing us up to date.
Let's be brief. Your daughter's
May
waiting.
I continue? It is all spilling out now. We have been irradiating our children for decades, and it is about to get much, much worse with the arrival of 5G. So I say to the Board of Education here in Bronxville, what's the tally on our kids' health? How does it all add up? All these things that in isolation are acceptable, or the cost of doing business in a tax-neutral environment. If you breathed, as I did, the noxious air billowing around this school on Halloween night, your thoughts are far away from tax neutrality or any of the other concerns we are told to examine first because financial. Why are we accepting without the least examination a plan for this school's future that does not anywhere take into consideration the behaviors of private entities that will always place their profits ahead of our children's health and our grandchildren's health? Endocrine disruption. Please look into it. Is it perhaps a subject of study already? The Science Expo here at the school on Thursday night promises to, quote, imagine new possibilities, engage critical thinking, question assumptions, and build our collective capacity for innovation. It's one thing to say this to the kids and mean it, but we grown-ups who serve on boards need to behave likewise. So I ask this board, as it prepares to spend the money it raised for the school's renovation, to please scrutinize the claims of anyone who is out to sell you something. 5G wireless connectivity requires an antenna the size of a pizza box every 250 feet. This is actually the plan by the 5G industry, regardless of the massive increase in radiation exposure. It will be sold to Bronxville in the same way cured-in-place piping was, in a sealed bid in executive session. This will be done in the spirit of imagining new possibilities and building our collective capacity for innovation. But what will happen to engaging critical thinking and questioning assumptions along the way? I was here on Halloween night. I filmed everything that was going on outside the school. The trick-or-treaters holding their noses and gasping for breath as they hurried by rumbling trucks and open manholes, amidst the general chaos of a bad decision. made in secret and with no real information. So I ask, when did this board learn about the Purdue University study? What will it do now that it knows about it? I've also just told you about a report in The Nation on the 35 years of lies perpetrated by the wireless industry. How will knowledge of this report influence this board's decisions about the health and safety of Bronxville's children? We will be reporting on Bronxville's response to all of this at bronxville.solutions. The absence of response is also news and requires documentation by journalism. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Yeah, thank you very much for your activism and your comments. Any other comments from the public?
Moral support, my good friend Pam. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm Nina Blauner. I'm a very proud second grade teacher. First time speaking into a microphone though, so apologize. And it's my good friend Pam, so up here for support. We will be quick. We wanted to read a letter that we've gotten about 140 faculty members to sign. Dear Bronxville School Board and Administration, we are all devastated and horrified by yet another school shooting in our nation. In the wake of the deadliest school shooting in the United States, Parkland, since 26 people were killed at Sandy Hook Elementary in Newtown, Connecticut, a grieving nation is struggling to make sense of another act of mass violence in an educational setting. There is little disputing that such violence in schools has become an epidemic. In addition to the need for stricter gun laws, we also feel like the fight right here in our own school should be for additional mental health personnel. By the time someone puts a gun in his hand, it's virtually too late. We believe we need to help young children when we first see signs of anger, despair, violence in our classrooms. In our school district, anxiety is a really big issue for many of our students. We are a high-performing school along with a community of very successful parents, and with that comes the added pressure on our students to perform well. We need to better address the mental, emotional, social, and behavioral disorders and challenges that occur among students. While we appreciate the call for increased security as one measure to stop the violence, these reactive efforts offer little more than a Band-Aid to the national crisis of children's mental health that lies at the heart of the problem. No amount of buttressing will defend against the affliction that already resides within the walls of our school. In addition, we can no longer afford to be a reactive country. Clearly, we need a system of supports in our schools and communities that stress prevention. What is missing is a commitment to these preventive measures that could actually address the behavior that could spread into violent action. The Center for Disease Control suggests that approximately 20% of U.S. students struggle with mental health issues ranging from anxiety and depression to substance abuse and suicide. These are all children in crisis with unmet mental health needs, and these children do exist in our school. A 2015 report from the Child Mind Institute found that only about 20% of young people with a diagnosable anxiety disorder get help. Addressing mental health needs in our school is not only our responsibility as informed citizens and educators, but it is critically important because we must have preventive measures in place for us truly to be safe. In the face of an outbreak of the flu or other pandemic, public health officials offer a vaccine as protection, a physical treatment to prevent the spread of a potentially deadly illness, bolstering the immune system before the virus can take hold. If we as a school want a preventive solution for the epidemic of school violence, we need to invest our resources in providing increased mental health services to our students. As it stands, the vaccine to violence prevention is in short supply. Our current school psychologists, who play a critical role in creating a positive school culture, initiating crisis prevention, identifying struggling students, and counseling students, face significant challenges, with a high number of children in need of mental health support. They are overburdened, limiting their ability to provide services and connect with children in crisis. Kids in need can, do, and will fall through the cracks. Our school psychologists are key players when it comes to crisis intervention and can refer students to outside help, such as a psychiatrist if needed. We can better protect our children against turning to violence by ensuring that our school is one in which students feel safe and supported, are able to recognize signs of mental distress within themselves and in others, and can identify a trusted adult and ask for help. We need adults who interact with children on a daily basis, not armed with weapons, but with the ability to respond effectively to students in need. This letter is a follow-up in support of the message the BTA delivered at the last board meeting. We are advocating for our students and for us as teachers and school staff. We must dramatically expand our investment in mental health services. As part of an overall security and safety plan, the best protection against future violence begins with increased funding for school-based mental health services that identify and support vulnerable children before a crisis occurs. We want this to be the next focus of the school safety debate. Please let's make school shootings part of our history and not our future. And it is signed by about 140 staff. And I have copies if anybody wants a copy. Thank you.
Could I ask a question? So, do we have instances, documented instances, where teachers have recommended to our counseling people that certain kids need to be served, treated, spoken with, counseled, and that they have not been able to address those needs?
Are you asking me if they have not been able to?
Right.
I think that we have a tremendous, fantastic staff of psychologists. I just think they're overburdened. They can't handle.
If they can't handle it, that means
all
they're
the
not
needs that
handling
we
it.
have.
That means they're not able to
But
handle
they're
it.
good at what they do. I don't want to, dismiss what they are
You're saying,
doing.
but kids are slipping, they're not handling all the kids, is that what you're saying? Would Dr. Kelly, would you agree with that?
I mean, I don't want to put her on the spot, but we as teachers have needs, and it's very hard to get somebody for the needs of our students when we need them, and sometimes it's an immediate need. Do you want to add to that at all? They do a tremendous job, and when they are helping kids, they really do a great job. I've been told by other teachers before my time that there was a social worker in the school that serves sort of a different purpose, and that was very helpful.
Yeah, but that person could be in another room at the time that you needed.
If I could, first I want to. Tom was unfortunately had to leave, and he wanted me to make sure that you knew that he apologized, but is also interested in the topic and such. But I think it's a situation, or look, no one can argue against increased mental health services to support our kids, nor do I want to try. But I think we have to be strategic in the way we look at the whole area, because I don't think it's about adding a body necessarily. It's about looking at the work our teachers do, because they're the first line of knowing our kids, and I think our teachers do a great job of knowing our kids and identifying those that perhaps need additional support. And I think it's a combination of working with the teachers, being strategic about what it is we exactly need, not just another body. Putting a social worker or two social workers may not necessarily solve the issue that we have, but it's certainly worthy of a discussion as we move forward as we look at the whole crisis of school shootings, school violence, mental health challenges of our children. And for me, it's about using our staff in the right ways, strategically looking at what our needs are, and then addressing that in that way, rather than just identify a specific title, if you will. So, I think it's worthy of a further discussion.
Okay.
I thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, any other? Sure.
I just want to support what you said about the pumps. They were working. I've been here 22 years, and I've been through quite a few floods. In light of the fact that we're negotiating with the district right now, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Stephanie Grahowski. I'm an office assistant in the elementary school. I'm also the chairperson for the Clerical and Health Unit for the Bronxville Teachers Association. In this role, I am proud to represent 22 excellent professionals. The 22 members include 5 nurses, Our nurses care for all of Bronxville students, including those at Chapel and St. Joseph's. As the district has discussed the expansion of the nurses' suite as part of the next capital project, you have all marveled at the number of visits the nurses' office has received each year, and it is carrying the support of nurses who care for all those visits and handle the important phone calls and communications made necessary by these visits. We have 2 CODAs, the Certified Occupational Therapy Assistants, who work with our district's occupational therapists to help our students with their handwriting and other fine motor skills. 2 library clerks who manage the enormous volume of checking in and out books in the elementary, middle school libraries. As the district considers expanding and changing the purpose of the libraries, the library clerks will be essential to supporting our librarians. We have 1 database specialist managing valuable data of student reporting to the state testing data, report cards. The district must handle and report enormous amounts of data on students, teachers, and the district. We have many office assistants, senior office assistants, and secretaries in the middle school guidance, which is Julie Denise, data entry, attending to the needs of the school psychologist. High school guidance, we have Liz Delfino, Roseanne Silves, who is also the register for middle school, high school. They do college applications, registering new families in middle and high school, transcripts, attending to the needs of students, parents, and counselors. In the middle school office, we have Katie Creed, who does attendance, sub-coverages, scheduling, ordering supplies, communicating with parents. High school office, we have Luisa Colarusso, who does attendance, ordering diplomas, making all the arrangements for graduation, parent emails, maintaining lists for military requests. Athletics, we have Dawn Hartson, who schedule buses, coaches, officials, ensuring that requirements for every team. In maintenance, we have Terry Capato, who is ordering of supplies of maintenance, liaison between personnel and the maintenance staff, maintains parking tag lists, and creates ID badges. Pupil personnel, we have Eileen Fogarty, who deals with IEPs, scheduling annual reviews, providing coverages for meetings. We have account clerks in the business office who do the benefits and accounts payable, Dawn Mulvey and Emma Kinney, maintaining all information and health benefits, dental, retirement, sick time. Elementary school, we have Samantha Moore and me. Maintaining class lists, set up calendars, update news on our TV in the vestibule, manages teacher spending, attendance sub-coverages, teachers' aid coverages, assists parents, teachers, students, and administrators. We look forward to working with Rachel and Dan to negotiating a fair contract. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Any other public comments? Okay, do I have a motion to, wait, oh. Dr. Katz, we almost cut you off.
Sorry.
I know.
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. David Katz. I'm a middle school social studies teacher and president of the Bronxville Teachers Association. Noticing the time, and without much to say, I just want to make sure that I do congratulate Jen and Izzy on their award of tenure tonight. I look forward to working with each of them for a very long time, and their continued contributions to the Bronxville School. And I thank you for listening to our students tonight, talking about innovation, talking about the work that they're doing with their teachers. I hope that we'll see a number of members of the Bronxville community on Thursday night at the Innovation Expo, where more of our teachers and students will be highlighting the ways in which we support the Bronxville Promise in our classrooms and with our students. I'm hoping to see a lot of people there, and I thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. One last point I wanted to, for all of us in public session, to express our deepest condolences to Dr. Montesano, whose brother, Rocco, who has a very illustrious career in the military and otherwise, who recently passed away. So, thank you, Dr. Montesano, for being here with us tonight. Okay, do a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting is adjourned.